The iron shackles bit into flesh, turned gray-green from days of bruising. And Harlan Greystone saw red the moment his torchlight caught the prisoner's face through the bars of the slave wagon. He had tracked this caravan for 3 days across the border territories, following rumors of traffickers moving through the disputed lands between human settlements and orc territories. The merchants had made camp in a ravine, thinking themselves hidden, but Harlan had learned patience during his years as a scout in the border wars. Now, 5 years after laying down his sword, he still could not abide certain things. Slavery topped that list. The camp slept. 4 wagons circled a dying fire, guards drunk on cheap wine they had looted from some unfortunate travelers. Harlan moved like smoke between shadows, his blade naked in his hand. He was not here for killing if he could avoid it, but he would do what needed doing. The prisoner wagon sat farthest from the fire. 3 figures huddled inside, but only one had green skin that caught the moonlight. Harlan's breath caught. An orc. That changed calculations. If he freed human prisoners, the local magistrate might look the other way. But an orc. That made him an outlaw in 2 kingdoms. The orc girl raised her head as he approached. She could not have seen more than 20 summers, young even by orc standards. Her tusks were small, barely visible past her split lip. Someone had beaten her recently. Extensively. "Stay quiet," Harlan whispered, testing the lock with a thin piece of metal he kept for such purposes. The mechanism was crude, built for strength rather than complexity. "You are human." Her voice was rough, probably from screaming or thirst or both. "You would free me." "Nobody dies in irons while I am breathing." The lock gave a satisfying click. "Can you walk? I can run if needed." She did not move toward the door yet. "Why? Does it matter?" Harlan pulled the cage door open, wincing at the creak of hinges. One of the guards stirred by the fire. "Yes." Those amber eyes fixed on him with unsettling intensity. "Humans do not help orcs, especially not their prisoners. This human does. Now move before they wake." He gestured urgently. She climbed out, chains still attached to her wrists and ankles. The other prisoners, 2 human men who looked like farmers, scrambled after her. Harlan held up a hand to stop them, one at a time, quiet as death itself. He knelt beside the orc girl, examining her restraints. The shackles were heavier than necessary, probably meant to humiliate as much as restrain. "These need a key or time I do not have. Break them." She held out her wrists. "I have seen human blacksmiths work. You have a soldier's hands. You know where iron is weak." She was right. Harlan positioned his sword carefully, using the pommel as a hammer against the chain link at her wrist. The sound rang out like a bell in the quiet night. To arms, the prisoners. A guard was on his feet, fumbling for his weapon. "Run!" Harlan shoved the orc girl toward the ravine's edge. He turned to the farmers. "Go, different direction, split their attention." The farmers needed no more encouragement. They scattered into the darkness. Harlan stayed long enough to drive his blade through the lock of another wagon, sending a dozen more prisoners fleeing into the night. Let chaos reign. He ran after the orc girl, hearing shouts and confusion behind him. She moved well despite the chains, her longer stride eating ground. But the shackles on her ankles slowed her, forced her into an awkward hobble run that would leave her caught within minutes. Harlan caught up to her at the ravine's edge where rocks gave way to a steep slope down to a creek bed. "This way." He grabbed her arm, pulling her along a narrow game trail he had scouted during his surveillance. "They will follow." She did not resist his guidance, but her breathing was labored. "With dogs." "I know, keep moving." He led her down the slope, half sliding on loose gravel. Behind them, torches bloomed like angry fireflies. Men shouted orders. Soon they would organize and the hunt would begin in earnest. They reached the creek and Harlan pulled her into the water. "Walk in the stream, it will hide our scent." I know how to evade hunters, human, but she followed him anyway, chains dragging in the current. "My name is Harlan." He kept his voice low, aware that sound carried at night. "Harlan Greystone." "Kaza." She did not offer a family name. Orcs had different customs about such things. "Why did you really free me?" "I told you. Nobody dies in irons while you are breathing." Yes, noble words, but humans do not risk their lives for orcs. We are monsters to you, savages, the enemy. Her voice held no bitterness, only flat statement of fact. Harlan stopped, turning to face her in the darkness. Water swirled around their knees. "I have killed orcs in battle. I will not lie about that. But I have also seen good men do evil things, and I have known orcs who showed more honor than supposedly civilized humans. The world is not as simple as the magistrates and war chiefs pretend." Kaza studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once and continued walking upstream. They traveled through the night, following the creek until it branched into smaller tributaries. Harlan chose the western fork, heading toward territory he knew. His homestead lay 3 days' hard travel from here, a small farm he had built after the wars ended. Remote enough that few people bothered him. Remote enough to hide an escaped orc prisoner if she would trust him that far. Dawn found them miles from the slave camp, exhausted and shivering despite the summer season. Creek water leached heat from the body. Harlan led Kaza out onto dry land, into a stand of pine trees that would hide them from casual observation. "We need to rest," he said. "A few hours. Then we move again. They will search all day." Kaza lowered herself to the ground with a groan. Now that adrenaline faded, her injuries showed clearly. Bruises covered her arms and face. Her clothes, rough prisoner's garb, were torn and filthy. "You should leave me, save yourself." "Not happening." Harlan settled with his back against a tree, positioned where he could watch their back trail. "Rest. I will keep watch." "I do not understand you." But her eyes were already closing. Exhaustion dragged her down into sleep within moments. Harlan watched her sleep and wondered at his own madness. She was right to question his motives. Most humans would have left her to rot, or killed her themselves. The wars had ended only 5 years ago, and wounds ran deep on both sides. His own father had died in an orc raid. His younger brother had lost an arm at the Battle of Crimson Ford, but Harlan had seen too much killing. Too much hatred perpetuating itself in an endless cycle. Someone had to step off that bloody wheel, or it would grind forever. Besides, he had meant what he said. Nobody died in irons while he drew breath. That applied to all living things with sense and reason, green-skinned or otherwise. He let Kaza sleep until midday, then woke her gently. Her hand went immediately to her throat, defensive instinct from too many bad awakenings. "Easy," Harlan said. "Just me. We should move." Kaza nodded, wincing as she stood. Her ankle chains had rubbed raw wounds during their flight. "How far to safety?" "That depends on your definition. I have a homestead about 2 days from here. Remote, defensible. You could recover there while we figure out next steps." "Next steps?" She laughed, a bitter sound. "I am an escaped prisoner and an orc. There are no next steps. Only running until they catch me, or I die in the wilderness. Or you stay with me." The words surprised Harlan even as he spoke them. He had not planned this, had not thought beyond the immediate rescue. But looking at her now, beaten and chained and still defiant, he knew he could not simply set her loose and walk away. "On my land. Help with the farm work, at least until you heal." Kaza stared at him. "You would harbor me, risk everything?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because it is right." Harlan met her gaze steadily. "Because you deserve better than dying in irons or being hunted like an animal. because maybe one person choosing differently can start to break these endless cycles of violence. You are either the noblest human I have ever met, or the greatest fool. But something shifted in her expression. Hope, fragile and uncertain. I accept. They traveled carefully over the next 2 days, staying off roads and known paths. Harlan set snares that caught 2 rabbits, which they roasted over a small fire hidden in a dense thicket. Kaza proved capable in the wilderness, knowing which plants were edible and how to move quietly despite her chains. On the second night, as they camped in a natural cave formation, Harlan finally took proper time with her shackles. Using rocks and careful application of force, he broke the chain at her ankles first, then the wrist restraints. The metal cuffs remained, but at least she could move freely. "Better?" he asked. Kaza rubbed her wrists, examining the raw flesh beneath. "Much, thank you. I have salve at the homestead. We will clean those wounds properly." "You are very confident your home will still be there," she settled back against the cave wall, "that no one has taken it. It is well hidden, and I have defenses." Harlan smiled slightly. "I am not entirely helpless." "No. You are a warrior. I saw that when you moved through their camp." Kaza tilted her head. "You fight with purpose, not hesitation. You have killed before." "Yes, no point in denying it, in the wars. I was a scout and a soldier for 7 years, fighting orcs, yes, and now you save one." She shook her head. "The world is strange. The world is exactly what we make it." Harlan checked his blade, a habitual gesture. "I grew tired of making it bloodier. Now I try to make it slightly less terrible, one choice at a time." "A noble goal." Kaza's voice was soft. "My clan would call you weak. They believe strength is everything and mercy is the luxury of those who can afford it." "What do you believe?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I believed as they did, but I have been beaten, chained, sold like cattle. I have seen humans at their worst. And yet here you are, risking everything to help me. So perhaps I do not know what I believe anymore." "That is a good place to start," Harlan said. "Certainty breeds fanaticism. Doubt breeds wisdom." They reached Harlan's homestead the following afternoon. The farmhouse sat in a narrow valley between 2 ridges, accessible only by a single winding path. Fields stretched around it, corn and wheat growing in neat rows. A barn stood beside the house, currently sheltering a single horse and some chickens. A small stream provided water. It was modest but well maintained. Harlan felt pride as they approached. He had built this with his own hands, board by board, stone by stone, a place of peace after too many years of war. "You live alone?" Kaza asked. "Yes, I prefer solitude these days." Harlan led her toward the house. "Neighbors are about 5 miles south over the ridge. They know I value my privacy." "Do they know you are insane enough to harbor escaped orc prisoners?" "That has not come up in conversation." He grinned despite himself. "Come, let me show you where things are." The house was simple. 2 rooms, one for living and cooking, one for sleeping. A root cellar beneath. Harlan had built it sturdy with thick walls and a strong door. Windows were shuttered and could be barred from inside. Old habits from his soldiering days. Kaza stood in the center of the main room, looking uncomfortable. "I should not be here. You are exactly where you should be." Harlan rummaged in a cabinet, producing bandages and the salve he had mentioned. "Sit. Let me tend those wounds." She sat stiffly at the table while he cleaned the raw flesh where her shackles had bitten deep. His touch was gentle but thorough, years of field medicine making him efficient. Kaza watched him work with an unreadable expression. "You are kind," she said finally. "This is not what I expected from humans. You have met the wrong humans." Harlan wrapped clean bandages around her wrists. "There, change those daily, should heal clean if we keep them from infection." "I do not have words to thank you properly." "Then do not try, Just rest and recover. He stood, moving toward the cooking area. You must be starving. Real food, I mean, not trail rations. I have not eaten a full meal since my capture, 3 weeks ago. Her voice was carefully neutral, but he heard the hunger beneath. Harlan built up the fire in the stove and set about preparing a proper meal. Bread from the stores in his cellar, still good. Potatoes and carrots from the garden. Dried venison from his hunting. He cooked with the efficiency of a man long used to caring for himself, and within an hour had produced a stew that filled the house with rich aromas. Kaza ate slowly at first, then faster, unable to help herself. Harlan watched her devour 2 bowls before she finally slowed. Color returned to her cheeks. The gray undertone to her green skin faded. Better, he asked. I think you just saved my life twice. She set down her spoon. Once in the camp, once just now. I was closer to death than I realized. You are safe now. Rest here as long as you need. And then we decide together. But no urgency. The slavers will not find this place, and even if someone reports seeing an orc here, I will claim you are my hired help. Not illegal, just unusual. Kaza looked down at her hands. I have nowhere to go. My clan exiled me for speaking against the war chief. For saying we should seek peace with humans rather than endless raiding. They cast me out with nothing, and within 2 days the slavers found me. Your clan are fools. Harlan said it flatly. You had the courage to speak truth to power. That is rare and valuable. It is suicidal. But she smiled slightly. Though I suppose I could say the same of your rescue. Then we are both fools together. Over the following weeks, they fell into a routine. Kaza recovered her strength quickly, orc constitution proving formidable. Within days, she was helping with chores around the farm. Within 2 weeks, she was doing heavy labor that would have taken Harlan twice as long alone. She was strong, incredibly so. What took him an hour with the plow, she managed in 30 minutes. Fence posts he struggled to set, she hammered down with casual power. But she was also careful, mindful of his crop rows and gentle with the animals. You are good at this, Harlan commented one evening as they washed up after the day's work. Farm work. Orcs are not all raiders and warriors. Kaza scrubbed dirt from her hands. Many of us farm. We grow different crops than humans, but the principles are the same. Good soil, good seed, hard work. I did not know that. And he should have, Harlan realized. He had fought orcs for years without ever really knowing them as people. Just as the enemy, the other, the thing to be killed. Humans rarely do. Your kind sees us only as monsters, just as many of my kind see you only as weak and treacherous. She dried her hands on a cloth. Both sides are wrong. Yes. Harlan found himself watching her as she moved around the kitchen. She had filled out in the weeks since her rescue, regaining the weight she had lost during captivity. Her movements were graceful despite her size and strength. She was, he realized with some surprise, beautiful in her own way. The thought unsettled him. Summer deepened into high heat. The crops thrived under their combined care. Harlan found himself talking more than he had in years, telling Kaza about his life before the farm, about his family, about the wars. She shared her own history, painting a picture of orc society that was far more complex than human prejudice allowed. They worked together, ate together, fell into comfortable silences together. It felt natural in a way that surprised them both. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, Kaza spoke quietly. I have been thinking about what you said. About making the world less terrible, one choice at a time. Yes, you have given me more than shelter and safety. You have given me hope that things could be different, that maybe orcs and humans do not have to be enemies forever. Harlan nodded. That was not my goal, but I am glad if it is true. What was your goal? She turned to look at him. Really? Beyond your noble words about not letting people die in chains, he considered the question seriously. I suppose I wanted to prove something to myself. That I had not lost my humanity during the wars, that I could still choose mercy over vengeance, that I was still capable of seeing people as people, not just as friends or enemies. And have you proven it? I think so. You are proof. This is proof. He gestured at the farm, at the peace they had built here. We are proof that different choices are possible. Kaza smiled, and for the first time since he had met her, it reached her eyes. Thank you, Harlan Greystone, for everything. You do not have to thank me. I do, and I will. She stood, stretching. I should check on the animals one more time before dark. Harlan watched her walk toward the barn and felt something shift in his chest. Affection, attraction. He could not quite name it, but it was there, undeniable and terrifying. This was not supposed to happen. He had rescued her because it was right, offered her shelter because she deserved it. He had not planned on caring about her, not like this, but the heart made its own plans, regardless of logic or social acceptability. Summer moved toward autumn. The crops ripened and they harvested together, working from dawn until dusk. Harlan's modest fields produced more than ever before thanks to Kaza's help. They would have plenty for winter and surplus to trade. One day, Harlan rode to the neighboring farm to trade grain for tools he needed. Old Marcus ran the place with his 2 sons, and they had always been fair in their dealings, but Marcus greeted him with a frown. Harlan, we need to talk. About, people are saying you have an orc living with you, working your farm. Harlan kept his expression neutral. I have hired help. Her name is Kaza. She is a good worker. An orc, Harlan, that's dangerous, and people are nervous. There are already grumblings. She has done nothing wrong. She works hard, causes no trouble, and stays on my land. Marcus shook his head. Doesn't matter, you know how people are. The wars are too recent. Too many lost family. They see an orc, they see the enemy. She is not the enemy. She is just a person trying to live her life in peace. Maybe so, but you are putting yourself at risk, and if trouble comes, do not expect the neighbors to stand with you, not over an orc. Marcus's tone was not unkind, but it was firm. I am telling you this as a friend. Send her away before this becomes a real problem. Harlan made his trade and rode home with a heavy heart. Marcus was right about one thing. People were nervous, and fear made them dangerous. But he could not betray Kaza by sending her away. He would not. He found her in the barn, brushing down his horse. She looked up as he entered, reading his expression immediately. Bad news. People know you are here. They are not happy about it. He told her about the conversation with Marcus. Kaza's expression shuddered. I should go. I have put you in danger. No, Harlan said it firmly. This is your home now if you want it. I will not force you out because of prejudiced neighbors. Harlan, they could hurt you or worse, over me. Let them try. He moved closer, surprised by the intensity of his own feelings. I do not make decisions based on what ignorant people might do. You stay if you choose to stay. That is final. Kaza searched his face. Why do you care so much? I am nothing to you, an orc you saved on impulse. You are not nothing. The words came out rougher than he intended. You are. You matter to me. You matter to me. The silence stretched between them, charged with sudden tension. Kaza's eyes widened slightly. Harlan. I know it is insane. I know society would condemn it. I know 100 reasons why this makes no sense. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. But I care about you more than I should, more than is wise, and I am tired of pretending otherwise. You are right, it is insane. But Kaza's voice was soft. It is also. I care for you as well. I have tried not to. Tried to keep my distance. But you make it impossible. They stood there in the barn, hay dust floating in shafts of late afternoon sunlight, the comfortable sounds of the horse and chickens around them. Two people from different worlds, drawn together by something neither fully understood. "This will not be easy," Kaza said. "If people already talk, imagine what they will say if they suspect there is something between us. I do not care what they say. You should. They could drive you out. Burn your farm. Worse. Let them try." Harlan stepped closer. "I have faced worse dangers than angry farmers, and I will not give up something real and good because of fear. You are incredibly stubborn." "So I have been told." Kaza laughed, that wonderful sound he heard too rarely. Then her expression grew serious. "If we do this, if we acknowledge what is happening between us, there is no going back. Your life will never be simple again. It stopped being simple the moment I cut your chains." Harlan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, he took her hand. Her skin was warm, her grip strong. "I have no regrets." "Neither do I." She squeezed his hand. "Not about any of it." They stood like that for a long moment, holding hands in the fading light. It was not a grand, romantic gesture, but it felt momentous nonetheless. A line crossed, a choice made. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Autumn arrived in earnest, painting the trees in brilliant colors. Harlan and Kaza worked the harvest, putting up food for winter. They grew more comfortable with each other, the physical awkwardness fading as their relationship deepened. They did not speak much of what was growing between them, but it was there in small gestures. The way Harlan made sure Kaza had the best portions at meals. The way Kaza positioned herself between him and any potential threats. The way they gravitated toward each other in the evenings, sitting close on the porch or by the fire. It was during one of these quiet evenings that the trouble came. Harlan heard horses before he saw them. Multiple riders coming up the path to his homestead. He stood, hand dropping to the sword he still kept nearby. "Inside," he told Kaza. "No." She stood beside him. "If this is about me, I will not hide." 6 men rode into the yard, torches in hand despite the early hour. Harlan recognized several. Marcus was there, looking uncomfortable. 2 of his sons. 3 other farmers from the area. The eldest, a man named Gareth whose family had lost heavily in the wars, spoke first. "Harlan Greystone, we have come to discuss your orc. Kaza is my business, not yours." Harlan kept his voice level. "She is a threat to the community. We want her gone." "She has done nothing to threaten anyone. She works my farm and troubles no one. She exists. That is threat enough." Gareth's voice was hard. "We remember what her kind did during the wars. The villages burned. The people killed. You fought in those wars, Harlan. You of all people should understand." "I understand that holding an individual responsible for the actions of others is unjust." Harlan felt Kaza tense beside him. She was not part of the raids. She had nothing to do with the wars. "She is an orc. That is enough." Another man spoke up, younger, angrier. "My father died at Crimson Ford, cut down by orc blades, and now you harbor one on your land. It is a betrayal." "The wars are over," Harlan said. "It is time to move forward, not nurse old grudges forever." "The wars are never over." Gareth dismounted, his men following. "Not while memories remain. Not while orcs still draw breath. We are giving you a choice, Harlan. Send her away or face consequences." "What consequences?" Harlan's hand tightened on his sword hilt. "You would attack a fellow human over this. We would do what is necessary to protect our families." Gareth gestured to his men. "Last chance, send the orc away." "No." Harlan stepped forward, placing himself between Kaza and the armed men. "She stays. This is my land, my choice. If you have a problem with that, you can leave. Now." The men spread out, hands on weapons. The situation balanced on a knife's edge. Violence hung in the air, one wrong word from breaking loose. "Harlan." Kaza's voice was quiet but firm. "Let me go, this is not worth your life." "You are worth my life." He did not turn around. "You are worth everything, and I will not betray you to save myself from these fools." "Touching," Gareth sneered. "The war hero has gone soft over an orc. Your father would be ashamed." "My father taught me to stand for what is right, even when it is difficult." Harlan drew his sword now, the steel singing as it cleared the scabbard. "He taught me that honor means something, that mercy is not weakness. You dishonor his memory with your hatred." "Honor." "You speak of honor while bedding the enemy," the accusation hung in the air. Several of the men looked shocked. Marcus closed his eyes, shaking his head. "I do not have to justify my life to you," Harlan said coldly. "But yes, I care for her, deeply. And I will defend her right to exist without apology. Now leave my land before this becomes bloody." Gareth's face twisted with rage. "You have chosen poorly, Greystone, very poorly." He raised his hand and his men drew their weapons, but before anyone could move, Kaza stepped forward. She moved to stand beside Harlan, not behind him. "If you want to hurt him, you will have to go through me first." Her voice was steady, commanding. "I am the one you hate, so fight me if you must fight. Leave him out of this." "Kaza, no," Harlan began. "I am stronger than all of you combined," she continued. "Faster, tougher. You know this. Orcs are not weak, whatever else you might think of us. If this becomes violence, I will win. And then Harlan will have to watch me kill his neighbors, which will break something in him he can never repair. So choose carefully." The men hesitated. She was right, and they knew it. An orc warrior, even an unarmed female, was a formidable opponent. They might overwhelm her eventually through numbers, but not without casualties. Marcus finally spoke. "This is madness, all of it. We came here to solve a problem, not start a war in Harlan's front yard." "The problem will not be solved while the orc lives," Gareth said. "The problem is your hatred, not her existence." Marcus dismounted, standing between the two groups. "Harlan is right about one thing. The wars are over. We need to find ways to live in peace, not perpetuate the killing forever." "You cannot be serious." Gareth stared at him. "You would side with him over this." "I am not siding with anyone. I am trying to prevent bloodshed between neighbors over something that ultimately does not affect us." Marcus looked at Harlan. "But you need to understand, this will not end here. Gareth will not be alone in his anger. Others will come. Then I will face them as they come." Harlan sheathed his sword, a deliberate gesture. "I will not live in fear of what others might do. And I will not abandon someone I care about because it is convenient." "You are a fool," Gareth said bitterly, but he mounted his horse again. "But Marcus is right about one thing. This is not over, not by a long measure. You have made your choice, Greystone. Now live with it." The men rode away, leaving Harlan and Kaza standing in the yard. Marcus lingered a moment longer. "I meant what I said. This will bring trouble, real trouble." The older man's voice was tired. "But for what it is worth, I respect your principles, even if I think you are insane." "Thank you, Marcus. That means something." After Marcus left, Kaza turned to Harlan. Her expression was anguished. "You should have let me go. Now you have made enemies over me." "I already had those enemies. I just had not forced them to acknowledge it." He took her hand again. "And you are not going anywhere unless you choose to leave. This is still your home if you want it." "Why?" She gripped his hand tightly. "Why would you sacrifice so much for me?" "Because I love you." The words came out simply, without planning. But once spoken, Harlan knew they were true. "I love you, Kaza. I probably have for weeks now, but I was too stubborn or scared to admit it. But there it is. I love you." Tears gathered in her eyes, spilling down her green cheeks. "That is the most foolish and wonderful thing anyone has ever said to me." "Is that a good thing?" "Yes." She laughed through her tears. Yes, you ridiculous human, I love you too. I have tried to protect us both from this insanity, but I love you, completely, impossibly. Harlan pulled her into his arms and she came willingly. They held each other as the sun set and darkness gathered. Two people from different worlds, choosing each other despite everything. That night, as they lay together in Harlan's bed, limbs tangled and hearts beating in sync, Kaza spoke quietly into the darkness. What will we do? They will come back with more men, more weapons. They will not let this stand. Then we prepare. Harlan stroked her hair, marveling at how natural this felt. We fortify the homestead, set defenses, make it clear that attacking us will be costly. They could burn us out, they could try, but I know tactics they do not. I fought guerrilla campaigns for years. I can make this place into a fortress if needed. You should not have to. No, but we do what we must to protect what matters. He kissed her forehead. And you matter. This matters. Whatever we have to do to preserve it, we will do. Over the following weeks, Harlan proved as good as his word. He fortified the homestead systematically, using his military experience. He dug concealed pits along the approach path, covered with branches that would not support a horse's weight. He set tripwires that would trigger alarms. He stockpiled weapons and supplies. Kaza helped, her strength making quick work of heavy digging. She also contributed knowledge from her own culture, showing Harlan defensive techniques orcs used. Together, they turned the modest farmhouse into something approaching a proper stronghold. But they also continued living, tending the crops, caring for the animals, cooking meals together, learning each other in the intimate ways of lovers. Kaza taught Harlan words in the orc tongue. He taught her human songs his mother had sung. They built a life together, even as they prepared for violence. The attack came on a cold night in late autumn, 3 weeks after the confrontation. Harlan woke to the sound of his alarms, ropes with bells tied to them that he had strung around the property. Multiple bells, which meant multiple intruders. They are here, he said, already moving. Kaza was up instantly, warrior reflexes taking over. They had drilled for this. Harlan grabbed his sword and bow. Kaza armed herself with a heavy staff Harlan had shaped for her. They moved to defensive positions they had prepared. Torches appeared in the darkness, many of them, far more than the 6 men who had come before. Greystone, Gareth's voice carried across the yard. Come out, both of you, face justice. Harlan opened a shutter slightly, assessing the situation. At least 20 men, maybe more. This was no simple raid. This was a mob. There is no justice in a lynch mob, he called back. Go home before people die. The only ones dying tonight are an orc and the traitor who shelters her. Gareth sounded drunk, or perhaps just drunk on violence. You had your chance. Now we take action. Marcus, Harlan spotted the older farmer in the group, talk sense into them. This is murder you are contemplating. I tried, Harlan. Marcus sounded weary. But I am one voice against many. Too many have lost too much. They will have blood tonight. Then let it be orc blood only. Gareth called out. Send her out, Greystone. You can still save yourself. Never. Harlan knocked an arrow. You want her, you come through me. And I promise you the first men through that door will not see morning. So be it. Gareth gestured and men moved forward with torches. They planned to burn them out, Harlan realized, force them into the open where numbers would overwhelm, but Harlan had prepared for this. As the first men approached the house, they hit his traps. Pit covers collapsed, sending 2 men tumbling into shallow but uncomfortable holes. Tripwires snagged others, sending them sprawling. Alarms rang out, adding to the confusion. Harlan fired through the shutter, aiming for legs and arms, wounding shots, not killing. He had no desire to murder his neighbors, no matter how misguided they were, But he would not let them harm Kaza either. The mob scattered, surprised by the resistance. They had expected an easy victory, not a prepared defense. "He has fortified the place," someone shouted. "Get the torches to the walls." Kaza moved to the opposite side of the house, watching through her own shuttered window. "They are circling around, trying to surround us." "Let them. The house is solid stone and thick timber. It will not burn easily." Harlan fired again, catching someone's shoulder. The man fell back with a cry, but there were too many. Despite his defenses, despite his skill, they kept coming. Torches hit the walls, the roof. Harlan had treated the wood with water and certain substances that resisted flame, but it would not hold forever. "We need to break out," Kaza said. "Fighting retreat to the forest. We can lose them in the darkness." "Agreed." Harlan grabbed his travel pack, always kept ready for this possibility. "On my signal, we go out the back, fast and hard. Do not stop until we hit the trees." They positioned themselves at the rear door. Harlan counted down silently, then kicked it open. They burst out into the night, running flat out. Shouts erupted behind them. Men scrambled to intercept. But Harlan and Kaza had the advantage of speed and desperation. They made it past the first line of attackers, Harlan's sword flashing to parry clumsy attacks, Kaza's staff sending men sprawling. Then they were in the trees, darkness swallowing them. Behind them, the mob crashed through the underbrush in pursuit. But Harlan knew these woods intimately. He led Kaza through paths only he could follow, doubling back, crossing streams, using every trick he had learned as a scout. An hour later, they stopped in a dense thicket, listening. No sounds of pursuit. They had lost the mob, at least for now. "Are you hurt?" Harlan asked quietly. "No, I am fine." He slumped against a tree, exhaustion hitting him. "But we cannot go back. They will burn everything." "I am sorry." Kaza's voice was thick with emotion. "Your home, your farm, everything you built, gone because of me." "Not because of you, because of their hatred." Harlan pulled her close. "Things can be rebuilt. You cannot be replaced. I made the right choice." "Where do we go now?" "North, toward the frontier territories, where humans and orcs sometimes trade, sometimes live in uneasy peace. We can disappear there, start fresh. Together, always together." He kissed her fiercely. "Whatever comes, we face it together. That is my promise to you." They traveled north over the following weeks, moving carefully through wilderness and avoiding settlements. Harlan had some coin hidden on his person, enough to buy supplies in small trading posts where questions were few. They lived rough, camping under stars, but they had each other. The frontier territories were different from the settled lands they had left. Here, humans and orcs and other races mixed more freely, bound together by the harsh demands of survival. Old prejudices existed, but they competed with the practical need for trade and cooperation. In a town called Crossroads, little more than a trading post with delusions of grandeur, they stopped to resupply. The proprietor, a grizzled human who had clearly seen his share of troubles, looked them over without comment. "You two are running from something," he said flatly. "Is that a problem?" Harlan asked, hand on his coin purse. "Not for me. Half the people here are running from something. Just keep your troubles to yourselves and we will get along fine." He tallied up their purchases. 3 silver for the lot. Harlan paid, grateful for the man's indifference. They took their supplies and were preparing to leave when a voice stopped them. Harlan Greystone," he turned, hand dropping to his sword. A man approached, weathered and scarred, wearing the remnants of military gear. It took Harlan a moment to place him. Thomas Kellerman." "The same." The man grinned, transforming his hard face. "Gods, I have not seen you since Crimson Ford. What are you doing out here? Long story. You, scouting the frontier for the Commonwealth, looking for settlements that might need protection." Thomas's eyes moved to Kaza, widening slightly. And you have interesting company. This is Kaza, my. Harlan hesitated, unsure what word to use. I am his partner, Kaza said firmly, in all ways. Thomas studied them both, then nodded slowly. Good for you. Life is too short to let prejudice dictate your happiness. He gestured to a rough tavern across the muddy street. Buy me a drink and catch me up on how a decorated war veteran ends up traveling the frontier with an orc woman. Over drinks, Harlan told the story. Not all of it, but enough. The rescue, the mob, the flight north. Thomas listened without interruption, his expression thoughtful. You always did have principles, Thomas said when Harlan finished. Remember when you refused to execute those prisoners at Black River? The captain wanted to kill them all, but you stood your ground, cost you a promotion. Some things are more important than advancement, true, and some things are worth fighting for. Thomas leaned back. You know there are communities up here, mixed communities, humans, orcs, others, people trying to build something different from the old hatreds. You two would fit in well. Where? Kaza asked. About 3 days north. A settlement called New Haven. Stupid name, I know, but the people there are genuine. They are looking for settlers who can work hard and keep open minds. Thomas smiled. I could write you an introduction. The founders trust my judgment. Harlan glanced at Kaza. She nodded slightly. We would appreciate that, Harlan said. More than you know. Thomas wrote out a brief letter on paper scrounged from the proprietor, sealed it with wax and his personal mark. Give this to Sarah Thorne when you arrive. She runs the place, more or less. Tell her I said you are good people. Why are you doing this? Harlan asked. Helping us. Because the world needs more people like you too, people willing to choose love over hate, principle over convenience. Thomas stood, offering his hand. Besides, you saved my life at Crimson Ford when that orc chieftain nearly took my head. Figure I owe you. They clasped forearms, soldier to soldier. Then Thomas clapped Harlan on the shoulder and left, disappearing into the frontier evening. 3 days later, as Thomas had promised, they found New Haven. It was smaller than Harlan expected, maybe 50 structures ranging from cabins to proper houses. But what struck him immediately was the diversity. Humans and orcs moved freely through the settlement. He even spotted a dwarf arguing with a human blacksmith over the quality of some tool. At the settlement center, a large common building served as meeting hall and trading post. Harlan asked for Sarah Thorne and was directed to a formidable woman in her 50s, human, with iron-gray hair and hands scarred from hard labor. Sarah Thorne, Thomas Kellerman sent us. Harlan handed over the letter. She broke the seal, read quickly, then studied them both with sharp eyes. Soldier and orc, running from mob justice. Thomas vouches for you, which counts for plenty. What skills do you bring? I am a farmer and a fighter, Harlan said. I can work land, build structures, and defend what needs defending. I have military experience as a scout. I am strong, Kaza added. I know farming, animal husbandry, and wilderness survival. I can do heavy labor and fight if necessary. We do not tolerate troublemakers, but we also do not judge based on race or background. Work hard, contribute to the community, and respect others. Those are our only rules. Sarah gestured broadly. We have land available for settlement. Standard agreement is you work it for 5 years, it becomes yours. Community helps with building and defense. Everyone contributes to common stores for winter. Think you can manage that? Yes, they said simultaneously. Sarah smiled for the first time. Good. Welcome to New Haven. Let me show you around. The settlement was rough but promising. Fields were being cleared and planted. A palisade wall was under construction for defense. People worked together, human and orc side by side, building something new. Sarah showed them to a plot on the settlement's edge near the forest. Good land, needs clearing. Cabin foundation is already laid. Previous settlers started it but moved on when they realized frontier life was harder than they expected. You can finish it. Harlan surveyed the plot. It was smaller than his old farm, but the soil looked rich and the location was defensible. We will take it. Excellent. Community work day is tomorrow. Everyone helps everyone else with major projects. You will meet your neighbors then. Sarah prepared to leave, then paused. One more thing. Thomas mentioned you stood against a mob for her. That took courage. We could use more of that here. After Sarah left, Harlan and Kaza stood looking at their new home. The cabin foundation was solid, built from local stone. The land stretched before them, full of potential. We can build something good here, Kaza said softly. A real life, together. Yes, Harlan took her hand. No more running, no more hiding, just living openly as ourselves. It feels impossible after everything. Many good things feel impossible until they happen. He pulled her close, breathing in her scent, feeling her warmth. We have fought hard to reach this point. Now we get to enjoy it. They spent that evening planning their cabin, sketching layouts in the dirt. They would need one large room for living, a loft for sleeping, a root cellar. Harlan had experience with construction from building his old place. Kaza's strength would make the work go faster. The next day, true to Sarah's word, neighbors arrived to help. Humans and orcs working together. They raised walls with communal effort, everyone contributing skills and labor. By nightfall, the cabin's frame stood tall and strong. An older orc named Grukash, who had been working beside Harlan all day, clapped him on the shoulder. You work hard, human. I appreciate that. Many of your kind think strength is enough, but you understand technique. I learned from good teachers, Harlan said. And anyone can see you know your craft. That joint work you did on the corner is masterful. Grukash grinned, his tusks prominent. I like you. We will be good neighbors. Over the following weeks, the cabin took shape. The community continued helping, and Harlan and Kaza reciprocated by working on others' projects. They began integrating into New Haven's social fabric. They also formalized their relationship in a ceremony unique to the settlement. Neither human religious rites nor orc clan traditions quite fit their situation, so New Haven had developed its own approach. Sarah Thorne officiated, speaking words about choice and commitment and building a future together. Harlan and Kaza stood before the gathered community, holding hands and made their vows. I choose you, Harlan said, voice steady and clear. Not because it is easy or socially acceptable, but because you make me better, because I see in you strength, wisdom, compassion. Because life without you would be diminished, I promise to stand with you, defend you, and love you for all my days. Kaza's voice was thick with emotion. I choose you because you saw me as a person when others saw only a thing to be feared or used. Because you risked everything to free me, then gave me a home and hope. Because you are brave and kind and stubborn in the best ways, I promise to work beside you, protect you, and love you with everything I am. Sarah smiled broadly. By the authority of this community and your own free choice, I recognize you as partners. Build a good life together. The community celebrated that night, a mix of human and orc traditions that somehow blended into something new. There was food and drink, music that mixed human instruments with orc drums, dancing that acknowledged both cultures. It was imperfect and chaotic and absolutely perfect. As winter approached, Harlan and Kaza worked to prepare. Their cabin was finished, snug and warm. Their plot had a kitchen garden that provided vegetables they preserved for the cold months. Harlan hunted, bringing in deer and other game. Kaza proved skilled at smoking and curing meat. They settled into domestic life with surprising ease. Morning chores and evening meals. Repairs and improvements to the cabin. Long nights by the fire, talking or simply existing together in comfortable silence. "You miss your old farm?" Kaza asked one evening as they lay in their bed, a cold wind howling outside. "Sometimes," Harlan admitted. "I built that place with my own hands. It represented my attempt to find peace after the wars, but this is better." "How?" "Because I do not have to hide here. I do not have to pretend or minimize what we are to each other. Here we can simply be." He stroked her hair. "That is worth everything I lost. You gave up so much for me." "I gave up a life of isolation for a life of connection. I gave up false peace for genuine love. That is not a sacrifice, Kaza. That is a gift." She kissed him then, fierce and tender. They made love slowly, taking their time, savoring each other. Outside, winter raged. Inside, they created their own warmth. Spring came, bringing new challenges and opportunities. New Haven grew as word spread about the settlement. More people arrived, seeking escape from old prejudices or simply looking for fresh starts. The community expanded, adding new fields and structures. Harlan and Kaza planted their first full crop on their land. They worked side by side in the fields, dirt under their nails and sun on their backs. It was hard labor, exhausting and endless. It was also deeply satisfying. One afternoon, as they took a break to drink water and rest, a rider approached. Harlan tensed instinctively, old wariness surfacing. But the rider wore New Haven's colors and proved to be a messenger. "Sarah Thorne requests your presence at the meeting hall," the young human said. "Both of you." "There is news." They cleaned up quickly and walked to the settlement center. Sarah waited with several other community leaders, both human and orc. Her expression was grave. "We have received word from the south," she said without preamble. "The Commonwealth is extending its authority into the frontier territories. They are establishing forts and claiming jurisdiction." "What does that mean for us?" Harlan asked, though he suspected he knew. "It means our independent status may be challenged. It means they may impose their laws here, including those regarding human-orc relations." Sarah looked directly at Harlan and Kaza. "I wanted you to hear this directly. Some communities are preparing to resist. Others are seeking accommodation. We need to decide our path." The room erupted in discussion. Some voices called for resistance, arguing they had built New Haven to escape such restrictions. Others counseled pragmatism, noting they lacked military strength to oppose the Commonwealth. Harlan raised his hand for silence. Surprisingly, the room quieted. His time in the military had taught him how to command attention when needed. "I fought for the Commonwealth during the wars," he said clearly. "I shed blood for their cause. I lost friends in their service, but I will not live under laws that deny my right to love who I choose. If the Commonwealth comes here seeking to impose such restrictions, they will find resistance." "Well said," Grukash rumbled. "I fought against the Commonwealth, lost family to their soldiers, but I have found peace here, built a life. I will not surrender that without a fight." Others voiced agreement. The mood in the room shifted from fearful to determined. Sarah nodded slowly. "Then we prepare. Not for war necessarily, but to defend our autonomy. We fortify. We train. We make clear that New Haven stands for something different and we will not be easily changed." She looked around the room. "Are we agreed?" The vote was unanimous. Over the following months, New Haven transformed. The palisade wall was completed and strengthened. Watches were established. Those with military experience, like Harlan, began training others in basic defense. Diplomatic messages were sent to the Commonwealth, asserting the settlement's independence and desire for peaceful coexistence. The response came in midsummer. A Commonwealth delegation, 20 soldiers and a magistrate, arrived to assert authority. Sarah met them at the gate with a delegation of her own, including Harlan and several orc leaders. The magistrate, a thin man with cold eyes, spoke formally. "This settlement exists in territory now claimed by the Commonwealth. You will submit to our authority and our laws." "We recognize the Commonwealth's right to establish forts and patrols in unclaimed territory," Sarah replied carefully. "But New Haven is not unclaimed. We have worked this land for 3 years. We have built homes and lives here. We claim this settlement and its immediate surroundings as independent. You have no authority to declare independence. We have the authority of people living free and harming no one. We ask only to be left in peace." The magistrate's expression hardened. "Your settlement harbors illegal relationships, humans and orcs, mixing. It is unnatural and against Commonwealth law." "It is against old Commonwealth law from wartime," Harlan interjected. "Laws that no longer serve any purpose but to perpetuate hatred. Laws that many in the Commonwealth itself question." "You are," the magistrate asked coldly, "Harlan Greystone, former scout, Commonwealth forces, veteran of 7 years including the Battle of Crimson Ford, and I am legally partnered with an orc woman. If you have a problem with that, you have a problem with me." Several of the soldiers shifted uncomfortably. A few were veterans themselves and recognized Harlan's name. The Battle of Crimson Ford was legendary, a desperate last stand that had turned the tide of the war. The magistrate sensed his authority slipping. "The law is the law." "Then perhaps the law needs changing," Harlan said flatly, "because I will not abide by laws that deny my basic rights, and neither will anyone else here. You have 20 soldiers. We have 200 people in this settlement, a third of them veterans from both sides of the war. If you try to enforce your unjust laws here, this will not end well for you. Are you threatening the Commonwealth? I am stating facts. We seek peace and independence. But if forced to choose between submission and resistance, we will choose resistance. Go back to your superiors. Tell them New Haven stands apart. We will trade, we will cooperate on matters of mutual interest, but we will not surrender our autonomy." The standoff lasted several tense minutes. Finally, the magistrate gestured curtly to his soldiers. "This is not over. The Commonwealth will not accept an independent settlement in its territory." "The Commonwealth will have to learn acceptance," Sarah said, "because we are not leaving and we are not changing." The delegation departed, leaving uncertainty in its wake. War seemed possible, but Harlan felt oddly hopeful. They had stood firm. They had made their position clear. Sometimes that was all you could do. That night, Kaza held him close. "This may bring the very violence we sought to escape." "Perhaps, but we will face it free and together. That matters. You could have stayed silent, let others take the lead. Instead, you stood forward, made yourself a target. Someone had to, and I have experience with such confrontations." He kissed her forehead. "Besides, I meant every word. I will not live under laws that deny us. I know. That is why I love you, your stubborn, principled, impossibly brave heart." Summer passed into autumn without the expected Commonwealth retaliation. Instead, a different sort of message arrived. Not soldiers, but a letter from the Commonwealth Senate itself. Debate was occurring about frontier policy, about the old wartime laws, about the changing relationship between humans and orcs. New Haven was not alone, it turned out. Other settlements had made similar stands. Veterans from both sides were speaking out. Change, slow and contested, was beginning. The letter ended with a provisional agreement. New Haven could maintain its independence for now, in exchange for establishing formal relations, allowing inspections, and agreeing to certain mutual defense obligations. It was not perfect, but it was peace. Sarah called a community meeting to discuss the offer. The debate was spirited, but ultimately the vote favored acceptance. They had made their point. They had established their principles. Now they could focus on building rather than fighting. As autumn deepened, Harlan and Kaza harvested their first full crop from their land. It was a good harvest, more than enough for their needs with plenty for the community stores. They worked in the crisp air, side by side as they had done for months now. "Remember when we met?" Kaza asked suddenly as they loaded grain into sacks. "In that cage, I thought my life was over." "Instead it was beginning," Harlan said, "for both of us. Do you ever regret cutting those chains? Everything that followed." He stopped working, turning to face her fully. "Not for a single moment. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. This life, this community, our future together. All of it is worth every struggle." "Good." She smiled, that radiant expression that still made his heart skip. "Because I am pregnant." Harlan stared at her, processing the words. We are, going to have a child. Sometime next spring, I think." She watched him carefully. "I know this complicates things. Half human, half orc children are rare. People may react poorly." Harlan swept her into his arms, lifting her off her feet despite her size and strength. "This is wonderful. This is. Gods, Kaza, we are going to be parents," she laughed, holding on to him. "You are not worried, terrified, but also thrilled. Our child will grow up in New Haven in a community that accepts them. They will know both heritages, both cultures. They will be a bridge between worlds." He set her down gently, suddenly conscious of her condition. "Are you well? Do you need anything? I need you to stop treating me like I am fragile. I am pregnant, not injured." But her voice was warm. "Though perhaps no more heavy lifting for me for a while." They told their neighbors that evening. The response was overwhelming positive. Grukash gave Harlan a crushing hug, congratulating him. Sarah produced preserves she said were excellent for pregnancy cravings. Other community members offered advice, hand-me-down baby items, and heartfelt happiness. That night, lying in bed, Harlan placed his hand on Kaza's stomach. There was no external sign yet, but he knew their child grew within. "What do you think they will look like?" he asked softly. "I do not know. Some human features, some orc. It varies." Kaza covered his hand with hers. "Are you truly prepared for that? For a child who may look more orc than human?" "I am prepared for a child who is ours. The rest is details." He meant it completely. "Human, orc, or something new, they will be loved and protected and raised to know their worth. You will be a good father. We will be good parents," he corrected. "Together." Winter came again, Harlan and Kaza's second in New Haven. This one they faced with anticipation rather than uncertainty. The community rallied around them, helping prepare for the baby. Grukash carved a beautiful cradle from local wood. Sarah's partner, a quiet orc woman named Thoka, shared traditional orc recipes for pregnant women. Human neighbors offered their own wisdom and traditions. The birth came on a cold morning in early spring, just as the snow was melting. Kaza labored through the night, Harlan at her side, terrified and helpless and determined to be there. Sarah and Thoka attended, experienced midwives both. When the baby finally arrived, squalling and pink-green and absolutely perfect, Harlan wept. His daughter. His and Kaza's daughter. She had Kaza's green skin, though lighter than her mother's. Human eyes, Harlan's blue-gray. Small tusks, barely visible, pointed ears. A mix of both parents, something entirely unique. "She is beautiful," Harlan said, voice choked with emotion. "She is perfect," Kaza agreed, exhausted but radiant. "What should we name her?" They had discussed names for months, unable to decide. Human names, orc names, something new. But looking at his daughter, Harlan suddenly knew. Hope, her name is Hope. Kaza smiled through tears. Yes, that is exactly right. Hope Greystone grew up surrounded by love. She had human aunts and uncles, orc cousins in all but blood. She learned both languages, both traditions. She was a bridge, just as Harlan had predicted, embodying the possibility of a future where old divisions meant nothing. Years passed. New Haven prospered. The Commonwealth formally recognized the settlement's autonomy, though relations remained complicated. More mixed communities appeared across the frontier. Change was slow, but it was real. Harlan and Kaza raised Hope together, teaching her everything they knew. Farming and fighting, human history and orc traditions, the importance of standing for what was right even when it was difficult. She grew into a remarkable young woman, fierce and compassionate like her mother, principled and stubborn like her father. One evening when Hope was 15, she asked the question Harlan had known would come eventually. "Tell me how you met. The real story." Harlan and Kaza exchanged glances. They had told simplified versions before, but Hope was old enough now for the full truth. "I was a prisoner," Kaza began. "In chains, being transported by slavers. I thought my life was over. Then your father appeared." "I was tracking slavers," Harlan continued. "I planned to free prisoners and send them on their way. But when I saw your mother in that cage, something changed. I could not just leave her. I had to help." "He cut my chains," Kaza said softly, taking Harlan's hand. "And he said something I will never forget. He said, 'Nobody dies in irons while I am breathing.' That is why I freed her. That is why I risked everything to protect her. Because some principles matter more than safety or convenience. Your mother mattered, and she still does, more than anything except you." Hope looked between her parents, understanding dawning. "You gave up your old life for her. You faced down mobs and the Commonwealth itself. All because you believed in doing what was right." "Yes," Harlan said simply, "and I would do it again without hesitation. You taught me that love is not just a feeling, it is a choice, a commitment, action in the face of obstacles." Hope stood, moving to embrace them both. "Thank you. For choosing each other. For choosing to fight for your right to be together. Because of that I exist, and New Haven exists, and maybe, slowly, the world is becoming a better place." "That is all we can hope for," Kaza said, "to make things slightly better. To choose love over hate, principle over convenience, to raise children who will carry those values forward." Later that night, after Hope had gone to bed, Harlan and Kaza sat on their porch watching the stars. This cabin, larger now than the original, held all their memories. The struggles and triumphs, the quiet joys and desperate fears, everything that had brought them to this moment. "You remember that first night?" Kaza asked. "When you freed me, you were so determined, so righteously angry. I thought you were insane." "I was insane. Still am, probably." Harlan squeezed her hand. "But it was the best insanity of my life. We have built something remarkable here, a family, a community, a different way forward." "Yes, and it started with chains being broken and a simple declaration, 'Nobody dies in irons while I am breathing.'" Harlan smiled. "I meant that then. I mean it now. I will always mean it. I know, that is who you are, that is why I love you." Kaza leaned against him, comfortable and content. "Thank you, Harlan Greystone, for everything. For seeing me as a person when others saw only an orc. For risking everything. For building this life with me. Thank you for trusting me. For staying when you could have run. For choosing this life and choosing me." He kissed her gently. "I am the luckiest man alive." They sat together in comfortable silence as the night deepened around them. Inside, their daughter slept peacefully. Around them, New Haven rested, a community built on hope and principle. Beyond, the world slowly changed. pushed forward by people like them who refused to accept that things had to remain as they always were. Harlan thought back to that night in the slave camp when he had made the choice that changed everything. He had not known where it would lead. He could not have imagined this future, this family, this life. But he had known one thing with absolute certainty. Nobody died in irons while he drew breath. That principle had guided him then. It guided him still, and it would guide his daughter and whatever future they all built together. The stars wheeled overhead, ancient and indifferent. But down here in this small corner of the world, love had won. Principle had triumphed. And two people from different worlds had found each other and built something beautiful. That was enough. That was everything. Harlan held Kaza close and knew, with the certainty of lived experience, that he had made the right choice all those years ago. Every struggle, every sacrifice, every moment of fear had led to this. A life lived fully and freely, with love at its center. Nobody dies in irons while I am breathing. He had meant it then. He meant it now. And thanks to that simple principle spoken in a moment of desperate action, he had found not just purpose but joy, not just survival but true life. As the night settled around them and Kaza's breathing slowed in sleep, Harlan made a silent promise to the universe. He would continue fighting for that principle. He would continue building this community. He would continue showing their daughter that love and courage could change the world, one choice at a time. The chains he had broken that night had freed more than one orc prisoner. They had freed them both from the prisons of prejudice and hatred and fear. They had opened a path to something better, something real, something worth protecting with everything they had, and in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Not defeating enemies or overcoming obstacles, though they had done both, but finding each other and building a life based on choice rather than circumstance, on love rather than fear, on hope rather than hatred. Harlan closed his eyes, Kaza warm and solid in his arms, and smiled. Whatever challenges tomorrow brought, they would face them together. Just as they always had. Just as they always would. That was his promise, his commitment, his choice. Nobody dies in irons while I am breathing, and thanks to that promise, two people lived fully free. And their daughter and their community, and maybe eventually the whole world, would know that freedom too. That was legacy enough for any life. That was love triumphant. That was home.